Chris, we have you on mute. Sorry.
Okay, we'll start over again now that I'm unmuted. Sound good? We got sound? All right. Maybe you're trying to tell me something about muting me. So picking up from where we left off last week about cycles. And this will be, we're really going to be investigating about really valuing the truth and really like what value do we get out of it? How do we get there? How do we leverage it? How do we understand the difference between what we think might be the truth and actually is the truth, and different avoidance strategies that we take subconsciously, and how do we consciously adjust to those. So the last week we talked about there we go. So leaving off where we started last week. So we talked about repeating cycles, right? And repeating cycles lead us to the truth. It's one of the reasons why we have cycles, is so that we can understand, once we identify them, we understand actually where the cycles lead us to. What experiences are we supposed to be having that are leading us to what truths are there for us to be able to uncover. And so if we talked about repeating cycles, experience, you have an experience, which then leads to observation, which then observation leads you to the wisdom. And in that wisdom is the truth. And really all we ever want to know is the truth. And to be, we'll talk a little bit about this in a couple more slides, it's about being agnostic about the truth. Because if you look at the truth as a data point, so we look at it and we say to ourselves, well, I really don't care what the truth is. I just want to know what it is. I don't care whether I like it, don't like it, it doesn't matter. But once I know what it is, that's the only place from which I can move forward in a healthy, sustainable way. And so cycles are specifically designed for us to get at the truth. So if we have repeating cycles that happen over and over and over again, it's because we haven't gotten to the truth yet. And that's why, right, we have the experience. And then through the experience, we get the observation. Through the observation, we get wisdom. And I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago, is that wisdom is the experience without the emotion. So all roads lead to the truth. So as we look for reoccurring events that are connected, we look for repeating outcomes when we continually have the same outcome on something. That's triggering us to actually find out and be inquisitive about, well, what is the truth, okay? Do we have the same type of people or are the same people or same types of people reoccurring in our lives, okay? That's another part of the truth. And do we have the same feelings, okay? Feelings are really our very best barometer of what we're doing. Remember we talked about like car dashboard. Right? It's feelings and our emotions are really they're really meant to be basically give us the ability to read where we are, no different than we look on a dashboard. And then at the end, are we willing to see it? Are we willing to see the truth that cycles are leading us to? And that's through that observation and wisdom. So what is the truth? As I just said, if you look at the truth agnostically, as you look at it very independently and detach, this is a really key word, detach, okay, from your ego and detach from the boxes that we build, okay, that get in the way of us seeing the truth. So what is the truth? Well, the truth is really, I've got this zeros and ones, right, which is computer programming. The truth is really a data point. And it's a data point where that once you get to it, that's all you really care about is don't worry about whether you like it or dislike it, or whether it fits or it doesn't fit, whether it fits into the view of yourself or the circumstances or people around you. Don't worry about any of that, okay? What you want to know is what is the absolute truth about an event, a belief, or a circumstance. That's what you want. And then from there, then you can sort it out. We'll talk about some examples in just a minute. So the truth illuminates. So what I mean by that is that once you sort that out, whatever that truth is, okay, and you sort out that that this thing either goes well or doesn't go well, okay, or either or, then you sort out the fact that the truth, okay, basically gives me the ability to see, 180 degrees, okay, about, what's going on around me. And it gives you kind of that panoramic view of saying, oh, that's what that is. So that we all have those types of experiences, right? And, I'll tell you one that we came up with, a truth that we had just recently, in the last few months, and it's led us to really amazing places, is that one of the truths that we understood, we came to, was that for how we're running our offices, for instance, that we were asking the sales directors to do too much. We're asking about somehow production, some don't, leading the office, training, coaching, recruiting, and all that. And what we really realized is that we're really asking them to do too much, because some of these are just separate skill sets. So what do? Well, we carved out the attraction piece, the traditional recruiting piece, and brought on people like Sarah and Karen, who we have one more to add, who that's their job, that's what they do, and they're experts at it, and they're excellent at it. But that was a truth, because one day, Ed and I were we were just talking about it. We're like, you know what? We keep coming back to the same place. It was a cycle, and we kept coming back to the same place. We're like, you know what? This is just too much, and the world's more complicated today than it was 5, 6, 10 years ago. And so, maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, maybe that would have worked, right? Where you could expect everyone to be a kind of jack of all trades, but we're no longer in a jack of all trades world. And so we would look at our results, which were good, but not as good as either we would like or we would expect. And it was a cycle that we were in. And all of a sudden we identified the cycle, and the cycle was we're asking too much. And that was a truth. And then once we got to that truth and we actually understood it, okay, then all of a sudden we had all sorts of options open up to us. And we had been in a conversation with Sarah about, we weren't quite sure about, great person, very talented, like to fit her in someplace, not quite sure. All of a sudden we have this conversation and opportunity opens up. Oh, wait a minute, right? This is a place that we can bring this very high quality person into our organization. So that's what happens, right? When you find the truth, when you identify it, you always have to have the courage to forget what you know, forget what you think, forget what you've been told, okay? And look beyond where you always keep doing the same thing over and over again. Remember last week we were using Groundhog Day, right? The same thing over and over again. And that's what the truth does. The truth allows you, once you hit it, once you acknowledge it, once you're kind of brave enough to peel back the layers and then say, hey, you know what? This isn't working. And you get to that conclusion. And I'm a real big believer in no matter where you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Because if not, you'd be someplace else. So no matter where you are, no matter what's going on, that's the exact spot you're supposed to be in so that you can get the maximum amount of learning. And the learning is the truth, right? Otherwise, think about it. You wouldn't be there. You'd be someplace else. So the truth illuminates. And once you actually get to that point where you can kind of accept it and you say, you know what, I can stop for a second and just forget my thoughts all these years or days or months, whatever the case may be, or forget what I was told, forget how I was brought up. A lot of us were brought up, don't forget, our parents are just people. They only know what they're no different than we are, right? They only knew what they knew, right? So, and so it's a matter of really kind of understanding what is the truth to this circumstance, what is the truth about this particular outcome? Do I want a different outcome? If I want a different outcome, I have to get at the absolute bottom line truth, and the truth illuminates. And that's what I mean by that, is that all of a sudden, once you hit that, all of a sudden, all sorts of doors, they just fly open. Now, what gets in the way of that? So the journey is filled with opportunities to get wisdom, to gain wisdom. And so, like this picture shows, it's a journey, and it's a long one. And we are given opportunities to learn so that we have the wisdom that will carry us in each leg of our journey. And that's the truth, right? You're building on your knowledge base, you're building on the truth of circumstances and events, and that's what's giving you the wisdom and the knowledge to keep going. And what gets in the way is the ego. So we talked a little bit a couple slides ago about detaching from the outcome. And once you detach from the outcome, it moves the ego out of the way and the truth will emerge. So let's just cover that one more time. Detach from the outcome. By detaching, it moves the ego out of the way. And once the ego is out of the way, the truth will emerge. And so I love this quote. I just found it last night. It said, in a war of ego, the loser always wins. So if your ego, and we've all done it, okay? So I'll just say if our egos, okay, prevail every time, all right, we haven't learned anything. Because don't forget, your ego is specifically designed, okay, to protect the image of yourself. It's specifically designed to protect this, right? And so if you hold a certain thought or belief, the ego will automatically, okay, you don't have to tell it to do this. It all happens subconsciously. It's all part of the programming. The ego will automatically jump to whatever answer that supports the view of yourself, whether it's the truth or not. And that is so critical to understand. So whatever our view is, the ego will get in the way of it. And the ego will get in the way of the truth. It doesn't do it on purpose. It's just what it does. So if you've built a mental image, okay, of a thing or a place or a relationship or an outcome, and you don't necessarily get that particular outcome, okay, if you're not careful about it and you don't detach, and I think detach is such a great word, okay, if you don't detach from the outcome, then the ego will create an answer for you about why this didn't work, but it won't be your fault. Okay, it won't be your responsibility. And so once you do that, that's when the truth emerges, right? And that's where you start to get that imputed wisdom for the journey that we're all on. I love this quote too. I found this yesterday from Jillian Michaels. A bad day for your ego is a great day for your soul. And I really like let that sink in for a second, right? A bad day for your ego is a great day for your soul, which means your soul's been enriched because the ego got put aside, okay? You got the truth, you got the answers. You saw things the way they really are versus the way the ego construct designs them. Because the ego is always designing based on the way you see things. But you can see things differently if you're willing to detach from the outcome, move the ego aside, then all of a sudden you're able to see what the real outcome is, what the real truth is. And then that's where authenticity lives. And next week we're going to talk about authenticity. But that's where you find how your soul gets enriched, is by understanding the truth. You're detaching from the rights and the wrongs, all the binary stuff, right, wrong, yes, no, good, bad, all that stuff, right? The truth doesn't care about that. The truth is just there to point you in a direction. It's a data point. So how to, right? So ask yourself deeply, what is the truth? And separate the answer you want, and separate the answer that shows up in your thinking, shows up in your head, and listen to your heart. Okay, your mind. Get out of your mind, because your mind is going to go with the ego. The ego is going to say that's not the answer. Listen to your heart. Listen to where the truth is, because the heart always tells the truth. Okay, not so much the ego. And once you've done that, consider that answer a data point. Now that you've got the truth is now a data point for how do I move forward? What should I do? When you're outside of your ego now, you can then choose the path in your heart, because there's no right or wrong path. If you understand that there is no right or wrong path, and that each path is just a learning opportunity, as long as we understand what the truth is, okay? The truth is, I went on this different path, and that worked great. I went on this other path, and maybe not so much. But it's okay, though, because I went on this path, I just figured out that, well, maybe this isn't the path I want to be on. All of it's okay. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. And then it's wash, rinse, repeat. You just keep going through the same process again. You know, detach from the outcome that you think you should have, or the outcome that that shows up in your head and your brain. Moves the ego aside, and then once you move the ego aside, now you know the path that you want to be on, and now you're confident in the fact that there is no right or wrong path. I'm supposed to have all of these. I'm supposed to have these experiences, because if I wasn't supposed to be here, I'd be someplace else, right? There's kind of almost like common sense. And then as you go through continual learning processes, you know, it's a wash, rinse, repeat. Just keep doing it. So next week, we're going to talk about how this leads into authenticity. So we went from cycles to truth. And now next, we're going to talk about living in authenticity next week. Have an amazing week. Good to be with everybody. Take care.